doorbell ringing stranger
Are you sure?
terrorizes a neighborhood.
Lock the door, check the deadbolt.
Something like out of a horror movie.
A mom fears for her life as her toddler watches.
This video is absolutely terrifying.
They pull a gun out and they force her up against the wall.
Oh no, stop, don't do it!
A violent assault in broad daylight.
People's lives are at stake here.
And spring breakers gone wild.
He's running away while in handcuffs.
The video is going viral on TikTok.
I don't really know what's going through their heads right now.
Close your phone.
Oh,
Jaw-dropping videos caught on camera.
What I'm looking for is the girl that's in the house. How are you? I'm gonna rape her and kill her.
It's a viral video that is so chilling, it puts an entire neighborhood on edge.
Lock the door, check the deadbolt just in case a stranger knocks on your front door.
The woman is home alone. She's doing the dishes.
I just rang your doorbell because I have a couple questions for you.
This creepy guy is standing at her door, just something like out of a horror movie.
I just have a couple questions for you. Are you sure? Are you positive? I just have a couple questions for you.
Repeating the same line over and over.
Are you sure? Are you positive? Are you sure?
The woman is terrified. She has no idea who this strange man is.
Are you sure?
She frantically dials her husband, who immediately hangs up so he can patch into the doorbell intercom.
So, who are you? What? Yeah? Who are you?
Her partner must be feeling so helpless. He's not home, and he's having this conversation through the Ring doorbell.
Who are you? Hey, I just had a couple questions. I just wanted to ask you about what I'm looking for is for the girl that's in the house to come out here because I'm gonna rape her and kill her.
He's the most calm, collected criminal I've ever seen.
You have her open the door?
He doesn't seem to be worried about the cops showing up, and he really just politely almost is asking to get inside the house to do terrible things.
The wife has dialed 911 and the operator is on the phone with her. But they don't know if the man is mentally unstable, high on something, or just evil.
Rape and kill the girl that's on the other side of this door when she lets me in. I want to rape her and kill her because I have a knife and a gun.
I would absolutely believe what he said 100%. Anyone who would lay out that they want to rape and kill me on a video camera is probably going to do it. I have to imagine in that moment, the husband is freaking out. This guy is standing there in this dingy tank top, scraggly beard, saying that he wants to rape and kill his wife. And then he continues to knock.
And I'm gonna knock on the door again.
This guy has a bag with him, and I can only imagine the contents of that bag are not good. Rope, tape, weapons. I imagine nothing good is in that bag.
I have a knife and a gun. And I'm gonna knock on the door again.
After making ominous threats, the man suddenly backs away. But is this really over?
Are you sure? No idea. What?
Kind of walking away from the house, mumbling to himself, looking back, trying to see any signs of life through the window or something.
What?
He doesn't appear to have a phone or earbuds in, so who could he be talking to?
Not knowing who the man is or where he went is harrowing. But at least his face is captured on the doorbell camera.
That same evening, this woman who was in the home immediately posts this to social media.
The video instantly goes viral.
Terrifying moments for a downtown Las Vegas homeowner who posted this video on social media.
They shared it on Facebook just so neighbors could be aware.
This video was shared online more than 78,000 times.
And that helps police track down the creepy stranger the very next morning.
An alert citizen recognizes him from the viral video. She sees him walking past her place of work and points him out to a police officer.
Standing on the corner, like at the crosswalk. And I'm like, wait, that's a guy I seen this morning.
He is identified as Christopher Sums, and police learn that he's wanted in 2 other states.
He's actually a fugitive from California and had been wanted there for stalking.
Sums is hit with multiple charges, including aggravated stalking and coercing with threat of force. He's ordered to get drug and alcohol counseling, but is found competent to stand trial and sentenced to up to 5 years. The woman he terrorized asks for privacy, but Karen Stewart, who is responsible for his arrest, is publicly honored.
Citizens being recognized for protecting our community.
People were creeped out by this video and wanted him arrested, so they were going to look for him however they could find him, and they did just that.
In New York, another woman is also confronted by frightening strangers as her 3-year-old watches.
As a mom, it would 100% have an impact on me.
We're looking at surveillance footage of the lobby of an apartment building. A mother is coming down the stairs with her 3-year-old son.
Something she's probably done dozens of times.
She sees 2 men standing in the lobby. At first, it seems like nothing to worry about, but cameras reveal they've been lurking here for more than an hour.
Looks like they're just waiting for the elevator, but then they turn, they pull a gun out, and they force her up against the wall. They point a gun at her, and then they point the gun at her son, and she's like, don't point the gun at my son.
As a mom to a 3-year-old, if something like this happened, it's the first thing you think about is your child. I can only imagine what she was feeling like, wanting to protect her child in this situation.
She has to imagine that these criminals are completely dangerous and not all there. And what could they do if they're willing to point a gun at a child?
They demand that she hand over everything she has and threaten to take her son if she doesn't.
If you're in this type of situation, let it all go. Whatever they want, just give it to them. Those items can be replaced later.
Panicked, she pleads for her son's life, but the men silence her. And to her horror, they tug at her little boy.
This video is absolutely terrifying.
With a gun pointed at her toddler, the petrified mom hands over her car keys, phone, and the cash in her wallet. And after a few nightmarish seconds, the men suddenly flee.
It could be possibly that they were waiting for the right person to victimize. And in this case, this is a mom who is holding the hand of her child, and that may be why they chose her.
To make their getaway, the men steal the mother's car. But first, they do something puzzling.
When they get to the car, they actually take the car seat out. Why they would take the time when they're stealing an actual car to remove the car seat, who knows?
As police hunt for the men, they turn to the local media for help.
Well, surveillance video out of the Bronx shows a pair of suspected thieves walking off with a single mom's belongings.
The traumatized mother speaks to reporters.
She told us he put his hand on her mouth and said, "Shut up, shut up, shut up." He put the gun to her body and she said, "Don't touch my son." But then they put the gun right against his head anyway.
Es el peor momento de mi vida. Yeah.
The worst moment of your life.
Yeah.
For a child, it's a horrifying and potentially damaging experience.
3-year-olds are smart, and they come up with a lot of questions. And sometimes it's something that may come on years later.
This kid is going to remember this event for quite a while. And for however many years this kid's going to remember this event is probably how long you need to stay in jail.
As the story goes viral, people are outraged. Even the city's mayor weighs in. But 3 days later, police catch a break.
In this day and age of technology, investigators were able to track the vehicle through its GPS.
A few days later, police arrest one of the men, 23-year-old Carlos Guzman. He's charged with second-degree robbery and sentenced to 5 years. The second culprit, Wagner Argamonte, is arrested a month later and charged with first-degree robbery. Police believe it was a random attack.
This mother did nothing wrong. This child did nothing wrong. And unfortunately, they were victimized. It's in these types of situations, it doesn't matter how familiar you are with your surroundings sometimes, you just never know when you could become a victim.
And that's exactly what happens to this man in Maryland.
Gun? Yeah, he has a gun, baby.
It's a brutal attack. Right in front of his family.
The family saying they do not know this man.
Let go!
Let him go!
Oh, no! Stop! Don't do it!
It begins when a man and woman passing by this apartment complex see something shocking.
Gun?
Yeah, he has a gun, baby.
They instinctively start recording on their cell phone. One of the men they are videotaping is Carlos Quezada. He's in the red shirt. He's just stepped out for the night with his family when the other man sneaks up behind him.
This all starts when Carlos is exiting his apartment complex. The gunman approaches him, instructs him to put his arms behind his back. He decides not to do so. He realizes the situation's gonna get bad, proceeds to fight the suspect over the gun.
No! Stop! Don't do it!
Carlos is pinned to the ground, and the gunman is holding a revolver right to his chest.
What are you doing, bro?
And then the gun goes off.
Carlos has been shot twice.
Horrified witnesses are gathering around watching these events unfold, kind of not knowing what to do.
Police are on the way, but the shooter keeps Carlos locked to the ground.
Oh, no! Stop! Don't do it!
It looks like he's trying to shoot Carlos again.
We're watching them wrestling on the ground until...
Don't do it!
We hear that gun click.
And amazingly, the gun misfires.
Now, brave bystanders seize the chance to help Carlos.
This is a really frantic scene. You got people screaming for help.
Ayúdale, ayúdale!
And you have multiple individuals fighting over a gun. It could go off in any direction. People's lives are at stake here.
They're holding the suspect there until police arrive.
One woman refuses to back down, even as others try to pull her away.
What we don't realize in that moment, though, is that that is the man's sister.
And Carlos's sister is enraged.
She's gonna do whatever she can to save her brother. This is obviously a traumatizing situation for the entire family. Nobody should ever witness this.
Carlos is rushed to the hospital. He's been shot in the leg and the chest and has a collapsed lung.
It's really incredible that Carlos survived this situation. When the firearm is later recovered, there is a live round still in the revolver.
The gunman is arrested immediately.
The shooter is identified as 24-year-old Marcus Elijah Conway.
He doesn't reveal why he shot Carlos, but he's hit with multiple charges, including attempted second-degree murder and first-degree assault. He is still awaiting trial, and it turns out he has 3 prior felony convictions.
So he should not have been in possession of a firearm. But as we know, most felons don't follow the rules.
The video of the harrowing scene goes viral as soon as it hits the news.
The man shot twice after leaving his apartment.
Good Samaritans are seen jumping in to help a man struggling with the person who just shot him.
The gunman put a revolver to her brother's head.
The victim's protective sister also speaks to reporters.
She tells me at first she froze in shock and then jumped out of the car screaming for help and trying to stop traffic as her brother struggled with the suspect on the ground.
People are stunned that so many bystanders risked their own lives to help Carlos.
I would absolutely consider these Good Samaritans heroes. They decided to act when they didn't have to. I'm glad they acted as fast as they did because I believe they saved Carlos's life.
In Florida, a different kind of attempt to save someone leads to viral infamy.
In this moment, these kids are thinking, oh, this is going to make a great TikTok.
What's your problem? Oh, please.
It's spring break in Clearwater, Florida, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of college kids on the beach having a good time.
Which means a bunch of 19-year-olds drunk out of their mind, just living what they think is their best life on the beach. I feel bad for all the officers that found out they are working this week.
You're there in a bulletproof vest in 90-degree weather. It's not fun.
So this video kicks off with a fight.
3 people came up to me, they're like they wanted to fight me. Stop! Oh, my arm, bro! Sir, I was scared for my life. You were on top of him, bro!
Which the police came to break this fight up and arrested some people.
Get off, bro!
Including Dominic Glass, who was handcuffed in the back of the car.
Bro, like, chill. What am I doing wrong? Hey, OP, get this on camera, you stupid bitch.
It's chaotic. People are clearly intoxicated.
Back up, bro. Take these cuffs off me, bro.
At this point, there are hundreds of kids standing around the vehicle, and it's 2 or 3 officers amongst a very large group of people. Everyone has their phone out, and as an officer, you always have to be aware of that person who may be trying to create that next viral moment.
And suddenly,
so we're watching this guy literally open a police car door to let the guy in the back escape, and he runs off.
Police immediately run after him, but so does the crowd.
Now, at this point, it gets pretty chaotic. Everyone wants to be in on the viral moment, so he's running away while in handcuffs.
I don't really know what's going through their heads right now. I don't think they know. I think they're just thinking, oh, now this looks like a lot of fun, and not, oh, we're on a crime scene.
Now officers realize what has just transpired. They had someone who's in handcuffs, so not only was he being detained, but they are also responsible for his safety, so they need to get him under control as fast as possible.
The wild chase is captured from a variety of angles by many of the young onlookers.
So near the end of this clip, you can see that an officer is able to cut off the young gentleman that was in handcuffs. It seems that he deploys a taser. I really don't think that the young man realizes the type of trouble he's in.
Back up now! Back up!
Congratulations. You're getting an escaping charge.
What could have just been something where he was written up for fighting on the beach, maybe issued a citation, now he's looking at some serious charges. They put him back in the cruiser, and they make the right decision this time by pulling the cruiser away from the crowd.
And now the young escape artist is a tad winded.
Holy bro. What other information do you need to get me out of this car and give me some air, boss?
Within hours, the video is all over social media platforms and instantly goes viral.
Tonight we have this viral spring break moment.
The video is going viral on TikTok.
18-year-old Dominic Glass makes a run for it.
Glass is arrested. He pleads guilty to resisting an officer without violence and is ordered to pay a fine. But police also want to find his accomplice.
They're looking for the guy who helped him make this getaway in the first place.
It doesn't take long to identify him.
He posted online that he was the guy who opened the door, I think because he wanted some attention.
His name is Adam Assad.
Unfortunately for him, investigators also see his post.
The next day, police make a post of their own.
Adam really wanted attention from all of this, and the police did give him attention by tweeting out his mugshot, saying he's going to be famous for going to jail.
Assad is charged with obstructing an arrest without violence and aiding an escape. But after completing a court-ordered program for nonviolent offenses, his case is dismissed.
I think it's clear to say that the infamy or the celebrity that came with this, that momentary viral moment, wasn't worth what they had to go through, because although everyone was laughing and running with them at the time, they weren't the ones doing the community service with them, I can guarantee you that.
A terrifying close call shakes a family to their core.
Careened at nearly full speed.
Without even hitting his brakes.
My first thought was check the baby's room.
This was a bad situation.
Pega, 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 pega.
An attempt to apprehend a thief takes a dangerous turn.
When is the chaos going to stop?
Mom mentality is a thing.
All of this from stealing a phone.
A doorbell camera captures a disturbing nightmare unfolding in broad daylight.
Those flames were right outside his home.
This is terrifying.
Everyone should get a doorbell camera after this.
And a porch pirate in a pickle.
He's trying to peel out of there.
Your wheels are not spinning anywhere.
You're caught! It is quite comical.
It's beached. It's not going anywhere.
Incredible crimes caught on camera. It's a bizarre incident that wreaks havoc on a quiet neighborhood.
Honestly thought it was like a dream, like what's actually happening right now.
It all begins around 4:30 in the morning. Jose and Brenna live with their 2 young kids on this suburban street.
So it's relatively quiet, and out of nowhere, we see a white pickup truck fly through that intersection without even hitting his brakes.
We had just come to bed, and all of a sudden we just heard this sound.
Driving through not only a tree, but a car, and also hitting the brick wall of this house.
And I immediately said, we have to go check the girls.
Inside, the couple's 2 daughters are sleeping.
So my first thought was check the baby's room, and we ran in there first, and she was okay.
Panicked, they race to their 12-year-old's room.
And she met us in the hall and said that this crash shook her whole room. She was so scared.
This was a bad situation, but it could have been a lot worse. If it wasn't for that small tree and that vehicle in the front yard, that truck would have driven directly into the bedroom of that small girl.
He was just barreling because we're like in the neighborhood, so it's 35 here. He must have gone like 55.
So at this point, the driver of the truck proceeds to try to back out of the yard, running back over the tree.
He was stuck on that tree for so long.
Yeah.
And at any point he could have stopped and gone, okay, I've done something wrong. I need to go make this right. And he didn't.
I was honestly going out there to make sure he was okay and not dead or something, but now he decided to just take off.
That's when he got on the cameras and checked the footage.
So from the footage, you actually have a pretty good shot of the driver. You can see that he's a heavy-set individual, and more importantly, he's wearing what appears to be some type of reflective vest.
I would assume somebody in a reflective jacket or vest is working in construction. It wouldn't be so far-fetched to imagine somebody who's working extremely long hours, maybe falling asleep, unfortunately, behind the wheel.
He doesn't appear to hit his brakes at all, so I would really want to know why that is.
We think he ran into the house because he was inebriated. There was no way that he didn't notice that he was about to hit a house without being under the influence of something.
He decides to leave the scene of the accident without checking to make sure that no one's injured or reporting it to the owners of the vehicle and the house. Now you have failure to stop, duty to stop, which would be a misdemeanor in most states.
The next day, the news is all over this wild story.
Police are trying to find the driver who, as you can see here, careened at nearly full speed into this house in North Lubbock today.
Who is this out-of-control driver? And where is he? After a car careens into a house in the middle of the night, then takes off, police are determined to find the driver.
Officers actually catch the driver later in the day when they respond to a domestic dispute, and as they arrive, they see the banged up truck in the front yard. There's tree branches, there's grass in the front grill.
The man is also wearing the same reflective vest as the man in the video. And after questioning, police have probable cause to suspect he was the driver. He is released pending charges. For Brenna and Jose, it turns out to be just one of that month's life-changing events.
One of the less crazy twists, but unfortunate twists for this couple is that the next week, they were getting married.
We were 9 days away from getting married in Las Vegas when this happened, and that was just not the stress that we needed at the time.
I mean, you already stressed as it was.
Yeah.
So anybody out there who has planned a wedding knows how stressful that is. Imagine having this catastrophic event on top of that.
But the wedding goes off without a hitch. And number one on these newlyweds' to-do list, some home upgrades.
We would really like to go to Target and steal those big red balls that they have out in front and put a few in front of the house just to be safe.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that the residents had video footage. More importantly, I'm glad that they had their vehicle parked in front of the house, because if it hadn't been there, this could have been a lot worse of a story.
And when people are angry, things can go from bad to worse in a hurry. This video of a criminal who refuses to go down without a fight is an epic viral hit.
I'm just like, when is the chaos going to stop?
It begins in a city just outside Rio de Janeiro, where a woman stands on a sidewalk lost in her phone.
She's so focused on the phone, she doesn't even notice the person on the bike right next to her.
For a moment, it looks like nothing.
We use our phones for everything. We probably have pictures of our ID. We have, our wallets with our credit card information. So when someone takes it, it's like they've taken a huge chunk of ourselves personally. So it is a really personal theft.
And then something shocking happens.
Just when you think, oh, it can't get more crazy, it gets crazier.
Wow, this guy just ran over someone for a phone. That's like pretty incredible. The bike is pinned under the vehicle. The suspect starts running.
Adrenaline has to be a factor here. He's up and he's running after getting hit by a car.
Now, a hot pursuit is underway. But why is the driver of the car joining in?
The guy in the vehicle jumps out and starts chasing after the phone thief.
I would think no phone is worth whatever is going to happen next, but he darts away.
The thief stumbles around the block, but just when he thinks he's dodged everybody,
almost out of thin air, we see this man kicking the guy in the head, like truly like he has a black belt in karate or something.
You have to imagine this guy has been waiting for this moment his entire life. I mean, how often do you get to do flying karate kicks in the air? Never.
If I was him, throw the phone on the ground, say I'm sorry, and hopefully have an escape route.
And now, a whole crowd of people has joined in to attack the phone thief.
Mob mentality is a thing. And, when one person starts hitting a criminal, it's a lot easier for other people to get involved. I don't know if this is some robber that has been in the neighborhood that people have been trying to capture for a while, or this is just a one-time occurrence, but they are going to pummel this guy until police arrive.
I'm freaking out right now watching him being surrounded because of all the intensity going on at this point. I really don't know how this is going to end. Is this a movie? Where is the special effects coming on? The worst possible scenario that could be happening right now is him dying over this phone.
When a mob descends on a man who stole a woman's phone, things start to spiral out of control. Luckily, police show up after a few minutes, and the 23-year-old suspect is treated at a hospital, then taken into custody.
The thief is charged with robbery. Local news reported that the suspect had a gun and it fell to the ground, but that somebody picked it up and took it away, so the gun was never recovered.
And there's a surprising twist. Remember that driver who rammed into the thief after he snatched the woman's phone?
Turns out we discover that is not just a random driver, it's her boyfriend who was arriving at the same time.
The video caught on local security cameras is posted all over the internet and racks up more than 9 million views. A lot of people on social media commend the woman's boyfriend for coming to her rescue.
The boyfriend has to feel like he's the hero in the situation. But why was he so scared about his girlfriend's phone being stolen? Was there something on that phone he didn't want other people to see?
Whatever the boyfriend's motive was, this criminal should consider himself lucky.
This could have possibly turned into a much more deadly situation. If the mob had decided that they wanted to have street justice, they could have ended his life.
I don't think he even was realizing all of this was gonna happen from stealing a phone.
Other crooks seem to forget that there are cameras everywhere. This is a bold arson, recorded from the moment it begins.
I mean, everyone should get a doorbell camera after this.
Almost everyone has a doorbell camera these days. Sometimes they capture life's funniest moments. But in this case, we see horror unfolding in real time.
A white guy in a hoodie comes up to the doorbell. He's trying to hide himself, and then he sort of gives up, and then he just starts spraying liquid all over the camera and all over the house, and then lights it on fire.
What this suspect may possibly have thought is that if he burns the camera or puts, something on it or something along those lines, that the video won't pick up everything. But what he doesn't realize is if you have one of these cameras at home, it's like a live feed.
William Sanders, the homeowner, is at a friend's house having dinner, and he gets an alert from his doorbell camera, sees this guy, and sees his house being set on fire.
As he watches in shock, he feels helpless. But he's miles away. All he can do is call the fire department.
This is a terrifying situation for this homeowner.
The first thing he has to be thinking is, all of my possessions, all of my memories are about to be lost. Luckily, the neighbors actually come over and they start hosing off the house. Then the fire department eventually comes, but they were able to salvage the house.
The homeowner has no idea who this man is or why he would do this. So he turns to the local media for help.
It's thanks to this doorbell camera that he saw those flames were right outside his home, and a complete stranger was the one who set fire.
Personal opinion is they got the wrong house. They should have been somewhere else.
You've never seen this guy
I've not seen this gentleman before.
You don't have beef with anybody?
No.
Police released the image of the mysterious arsonist to the public.
People came forward. They were able to identify the person in this video.
And when police show up to apprehend him, he's actually wearing the same shirt that he was the day that he set fire to Williams' house.
36-year-old Justin Winjum is charged with arson and criminal damage.
Doorbell cameras can be a fantastic resource and can also help investigators in many crimes.
And in Williams' case, that camera prevented what could have been a complete tragedy.
Williams' front porch could be replaced. Thankfully, he still has all of his memories inside of his house. And that day, no one was injured. That's the best news of all.
Another porch crime in Canada turns into a nightmare for the would-be thief.
Yeah, it's done. You're done. Call the police, now!
Porch pirates, thieves who steal your packages right off your front doorstep, are becoming a persistent nuisance.
You're done.
It's happening in every neighborhood all over North America.
A would-be porch pirate is facing charges.
You're done. Cops is coming.
I hate it when this happens, when you got a small car, Mr. B-Town.
Oh, let's go into the snowbank.
4 days into the new year, a couple just outside Toronto wakes up to the sound of someone at their door. The startled porch pirate bolts to his getaway car.
You're done. Cops is coming. Cops is coming. Call the police, now. You call?
What's calling?
The wife is so frazzled by the situation.
It's going to your number. I don't know the number.
She's like, I need to call the police, but what's the number to police?
You're done.
It's literally a train wreck of a car getaway.
Look, Dan, your wheels are not spinning anywhere.
You're caught!
The wheels of the car are going full force, but nothing is happening.
It's only 7 seconds from the time he's busted to the time he gets to his car. But it seems like he is stuck on the snowbank for eternity.
Want me to get you a shovel?
While the wife is running around trying to figure out the number and call police, the husband actually offers the porch pirate a shovel.
I get you a shovel.
This is the most stereotypical Canadian crime of all time because you have the person who's the victim trying to help the criminal out. You don't see that here in America.
He's trying to dig and dig the snow away from his wheels, but the wheels aren't even touching the ground.
It's front-wheel drive. You need to get the wheels on the ground.
I'm getting an extreme sense of secondhand embarrassment from this video.
The wheel is not even on the ground. You need to get the wheel on the ground.
It's almost to the point where I want to turn it off, but I also have to keep watching to see if he can get off of the snowbank.
The police are coming. Just forget it. Okay, well.
I think he is sincerely sorry that he decided to be a porch pirate this day.
Your wheels are not spinning anywhere.
You're caught! No mercy.
It seems like the husband is really calmed down. The entire time the wife is really angry.
You ass!
She just wants this guy to get arrested.
After 6 minutes of futile tire spinning, police arrive.
When the police do show up, the suspect is sitting in his car.
Seriously, he's gonna take a sip of water right now?
And he actually takes a sip of water, which enrages the wife even more.
Hands up. Get out of the car now!
Once the homeowner's cell phone footage hits the internet, it's a viral hit with millions of views. For newscasters, it's a struggle to maintain composure.
He's trying to peel out of there and front-wheel drive car, it's beached. It's not going anywhere.
The homeowner, well, they've already called 911 by now. Now all they can do is sit back and watch the show.
He was stuck in a bit of a pickle there, like literally.
At a press conference, even the police can't stifle their laughter.
Once they get there, sure enough, that individual's still struggling with that vehicle.
It is quite comical. Just watching the car after he jumps in, tries to reverse out, gets stuck on the snow, and the wheels are just turning.
I feel if we didn't have the police coming to arrest this guy, we would have seen the entire neighborhood get together to help this man get his car off the snow.
On social media, the hapless thief takes a beating.
Anyone who lives in Canada should definitely know how to maneuver a snowbank.
Ultimately, this porch pirate is arrested for theft. Can't imagine the police not laughing at him the entire way to the station.
The 33-year-old porch pirate is charged with fraud and theft under $5,000.
If I was this porch pirate, I would have just stayed home or waited for spring.
And there's a lesson here for all homeowners.
I feel my advice for anybody who owns a home and doesn't want a porch pirate is to know when your packages are arriving or just go to the store.
Got down the card now.
On the morning of July 23rd, 1994, a young woman left her family home in Rome and stepped into what should have been an ordinary summer day. She was 21 years old. She was a university student. She had plans for the afternoon, plans for the evening, and plans for the days ahead. Most importantly, she had made a promise. She told her family that she would be back before lunch. They were preparing to leave together for a holiday in the Umbrian countryside, and there was every reason to believe that the day would unfold exactly as expected. But sometimes the most enduring mysteries begin not with violence, not with obvious danger, but with routine. A daughter leaves home. A family waits. And then the waiting never ends. More than 3 decades have passed since that summer morning. The city around the case has changed. Rome has grown older. Streets have been renovated. Businesses have opened and closed. Generations have come and gone. Yet the name Alessia Rosati continues to surface whenever Italians discuss the country's most haunting unresolved disappearances. Because unlike many criminal cases, this story offers no definitive ending. There is no known crime scene. There is no body. There is no identified perpetrator. There is not even certainty about whether a crime occurred at all. Instead, there's a trail of fragments, pieces of information that seem important, clues that appear meaningful, and questions that become more difficult to answer with each passing year. A sighting. A handwritten letter, a white Peugeot, a phone message from a terrified woman, and then silence. For investigators, silence can be one of the most frustrating obstacles in any disappearance. Physical evidence can be examined. Witnesses can be questioned. Timelines can be reconstructed. But when a person simply vanishes, leaving behind only uncertainty, every detail suddenly acquires enormous weight. Every statement becomes significant. Every coincidence feels potentially important. Every unanswered question grows larger. That is precisely what happened in the case of Alessia Rosati. At first glance, some elements of the story appear straightforward. 3 days after Alessia disappeared, a letter emerged. The letter suggested that she had chosen to leave. According to its contents, she had unexpectedly encountered a man who had once been important to her. He was preparing to leave, and she had decided to travel through Europe with him. She wrote that she wanted to escape a difficult year. She explained that she did not know when she would return. If the letter told the truth, then perhaps there was no mystery at all. Perhaps a young woman simply decided to walk away from her old life. Perhaps she sought freedom, distance, or a new beginning. Perhaps everything that followed was merely the consequence of a private decision that outsiders were never meant to understand. But the letter did not bring clarity. Instead, it deepened the mystery. Experts concluded that the handwriting appeared genuine. Yet questions remained. Who was the man mentioned in the letter? Why had nobody around Alessia ever heard about him? Why had she apparently left without making practical preparations for extended travel? Why had she failed to take many of the belongings one might expect someone to carry while embarking on a journey across Europe? The more people examined the letter, the less certain they became about what it truly meant. For Alessia's family, the document offered neither comfort nor closure. If she had written it, why had she disappeared so completely? If she had left voluntarily, why had she never contacted them again? And if something else had happened, what exactly was the letter trying to say? Those questions would linger for years. Then there was a reported sighting involving a white Peugeot 205. A family acquaintance claimed to have seen Alessia inside the vehicle. The car reportedly carried distinctive rally markings on its side. According to the account, Alessia appeared to react when she realized she had been recognized. Rather than wave or seek contact, she allegedly tried to hide her face. That single detail transformed a simple sighting into a source of endless speculation. Why would someone hide? Was she avoiding questions? Was she embarrassed? Was she frightened? Was she attempting to disappear? Or was there another explanation entirely? Investigators traced the vehicle and discovered a connection to prison police personnel. Yet despite the apparent significance of the lead, it ultimately produced no clear breakthrough. The car became another piece of the puzzle, interesting, suggestive, and ultimately unresolved. Then, almost exactly 1 year later, another strange development emerged. On July 6, 1995, the Rosati family received a message on their answering machine. The voice belonged to a woman. She reportedly spoke with a foreign accent, possibly from the former Yugoslavia. Her message was brief. Her tone was urgent, and her words would echo through the years that followed. Alessia is very unwell. Find her. That was all. No name. No location. No explanation. No way to verify who she was or why she knew anything about Alessia. The message offered hope and fear in equal measure. If it was genuine, then Alessia might have been alive a year after her disappearance. If it was genuine, then someone knew where she was. If it was genuine, then perhaps she needed help. But if it was not genuine, then it represented one more cruel twist in a case already defined by uncertainty. Investigators faced an impossible challenge. How do you evaluate a message when you cannot identify the caller? How do you separate truth from rumor when there is so little evidence to begin with? Over time, theories emerged. Some believe Alessia had left voluntarily and successfully started a new life somewhere beyond the reach of her family and the authorities. Others suspected that she had initially left by choice, but later became the victim of a crime. Still others searched for connections between her disappearance and other famous missing person, cases that had captured Italy's attention. Yet despite decades of discussion, none of these theories have been proven. And that may be the most unsettling aspect of this story. In many investigations, uncertainty gradually shrinks. Evidence accumulates. Witnesses come forward. New forensic techniques provide answers. Even when justice is delayed, there is often movement toward resolution. In the case of Alessia Rosati, however, the central mystery remains remarkably intact. The fundamental questions that existed in July of 1994 continue to exist today. Where did she go after she was last seen? Who was the man described in the letter? Why did she never return home? Who left the message 1 year later? And perhaps most importantly, was Alessia Rosati exercising her own free will? Or was she already caught in circumstances that nobody around her could see? These are the questions that have haunted investigators, journalists, and family members for more than 30 years. This is not a story about a solved crime. It is not a story that concludes with a courtroom verdict or a dramatic confession. Instead, it is the story of an absence. The story of a young woman whose life suddenly diverged from every expectation. The story of a family forced to live between hope and grief. And the story of a mystery that remains one of Rome's most enduring cold cases. Tonight, we retrace the known facts. We examine the final confirmed movements of Alessia Rosati. We follow the investigation through its breakthroughs and dead ends. and we explore the competing explanations that have emerged over the decades. Because somewhere within this collection of letters, sightings, unanswered phone calls, and missing years lies a question that has never been resolved. What really happened to Alessia Rosati after she walked out of her home on July 23, 1994? To understand why the disappearance of Alessia Rosati continues to resonate more than 3 decades later, it is necessary to begin not with the mystery itself, but with the person at its center. In many unresolved cases, the public memory eventually becomes dominated by theories, evidence, and speculation. The victim's identity slowly fades behind timelines and investigative documents. Yet every missing person case begins with a human being whose life existed long before the headlines appeared. Before there were questions, there was a young woman. Before there was an investigation, there was a family. Before there was a mystery, there was an ordinary future that suddenly stopped unfolding. In the summer of 1994, Alessia Rosati was 21 years old and living in Rome with her family. She resided in the Monte Sacro district, a well-established residential area in the northern part of the city. Like many young adults her age, she occupied a transitional stage of life, balancing the familiar comforts of home with the growing responsibilities and uncertainties of adulthood. The future stretched before her with possibilities that had not yet been chosen. Alessia was a student at Sapienza University of Rome, one of Italy's most respected academic institutions. She was studying literature, a field that often attracts individuals who are curious about ideas, language, history, and the complexities of human experience. While academic records alone can reveal little about a person's character, those who knew Alessia described her as intelligent and deeply interested in reading. Books were not merely academic tools for her. Reading formed part of the way she engaged with the world. Descriptions of Alessia that emerged after her disappearance often emphasized another aspect of her: personality. She was said to possess a rich and complicated inner life. This phrase appears repeatedly when people attempt to describe individuals whose thoughts and emotions are not always visible on the surface. It suggests someone reflective, perhaps introspective, someone who spent time examining ideas and feelings that others might never fully see. Such descriptions should be approached carefully. After a disappearance, people often revisit memories and search for signs that may explain what happened. Ordinary personality traits can suddenly appear significant simply because a tragedy occurred later. Nevertheless, the consistent portrayal of Alessia as thoughtful, intelligent, and inwardly complex provides an important glimpse into who she was before July 23rd. 1994 transformed her life into a mystery. At home, Alessia lived with her mother, father, and younger brother. The available information does not provide extensive details about daily family life, and it would be inappropriate to invent them. What is known is that the family shared a household and maintained plans together. These plans become particularly important because they establish the context for Alessia's final known day. The Rosati family was preparing for a summer trip to Umbria. For many Italian families, summer holidays are deeply rooted traditions. They represent a temporary escape from routine, an opportunity to spend time together away from the pressures of work, study, and city life. In 1994, the Rosatis were preparing to leave Rome and travel to the Umbrian countryside. The trip was not some distant possibility. It was imminent. The departure was scheduled for the very day Alessia vanished. This detail may appear small, but investigators often pay close attention to such circumstances because they help establish expectations and behavior. Alessia was not leaving home on a random day without obligations or plans. She was leaving on a morning when her family expected her return within a matter of hours. The holiday was already organized. The family intended to travel together. her absence would become noticeable almost immediately. To appreciate the significance of that fact, it is useful to imagine the atmosphere surrounding the household during those summer hours. A family preparing for travel rarely operates in uncertainty. There are schedules to follow, belongings to organize, and departure times to meet. Everyone generally knows where they are supposed to be and when they are expected to return. Alessia's promise that she would come back before lunch carried meaning precisely because it fit into an existing plan. Nothing in the known facts suggests that her family expected that morning to be anything other than ordinary. Nothing suggests they believed they were saying goodbye. Nothing suggests they anticipated that their final confirmed interaction with Alessia would become one of the most scrutinized moments of their lives. The morning itself began with a simple explanation. Alessia told her family that she intended to go out with her friend Claudia. Together, they were reportedly going to attend the high school graduation examination of a friend. The explanation was straightforward and believable. There was no obvious reason for concern. Young adults attend social events. Friends support one another during important milestones. The plan fit naturally within the rhythms of everyday life. Most significantly, Alessia made clear that she would not be gone long. She told her family she would return in time for lunch. That statement would later acquire enormous importance. When investigators reconstruct disappearances, they often examine a victim's final words. Not because such words necessarily contain hidden meaning, but because they reveal expectations. Alessia's statement suggested a short absence. She was not announcing plans to travel. She was not describing an extended journey. She was not saying goodbye to family members before beginning a new chapter elsewhere. According to the known facts, she was simply leaving for part of the morning and expected to return before the family's holiday departure. The simplicity of the plan is one reason the case remains so difficult to understand. Had Alessia openly discussed a desire to disappear, the mystery would look different. Had she packed extensively, the mystery would look different. Had she informed relatives that she needed time away, the mystery would look different. Instead, the available information presents a picture of a young woman participating in what appeared to be a normal day. Of course, appearances can be misleading. One of the central questions in this case concerns whether Alessia was experiencing private struggles unknown to many people around her. Some acquaintances later suggested that she was unhappy with aspects of her life and may have experienced tensions within her family environment. Such observations became important because they supported one of the major theories that emerged. Later, the possibility that Alessia voluntarily chose to leave. Yet even here, caution is necessary. Feelings of dissatisfaction are not uncommon among young adults. Family disagreements are not uncommon. Uncertainty about the future is not uncommon. Millions of people experience these challenges without disappearing. The existence of personal difficulties, even if genuine, cannot by itself explain what happened after July 23, 1994. What these observations do reveal is that Alessia was not a simple caricature. She was neither a perfectly content young woman with no worries, nor a person obviously preparing to abandon her life. Like most people, she appears to have occupied a complicated middle ground. She was a student, a daughter, a sister, a reader, a young woman standing at the threshold between adolescence and adulthood. And perhaps, like many people at that stage of life, she was still trying to determine exactly who she wanted to become. That complexity is important because it reminds us that unresolved disappearances rarely involve easy narratives. Human lives are seldom simple. Investigators often seek a clear motive, a definitive explanation, or a single event that makes everything understandable. But reality does not always cooperate. As the morning of July 23rd unfolded, Nobody could know that Alessia's life story was approaching a point where certainty would disappear. Her family likely viewed the day through the lens of practical concerns. There was a holiday ahead. She would meet a friend. She would return before lunch. Then everyone would leave together. Simple. Ordinary. Predictable. Yet those ordinary expectations are precisely what make the events that followed so unsettling. When someone vanishes in the midst of a major crisis, observers can at least identify the moment when circumstances changed. When someone disappears during what should have been a routine day, the transition from normality to mystery feels almost impossible to comprehend. At some point that morning, Alessia walked out of her home in Monte Sacro. At some point, she stepped into the streets of Rome. At some point, she began moving through a city containing millions of people. And at some point, without anyone realizing it, she crossed an invisible boundary between a known life and an unknown fate. The people she left behind did not know they were entering a decades-long search for answers. They did not know that investigators would eventually analyze letters, witness statements, and phone messages in an attempt to reconstruct her final movements. They did not know that 30 years later, the same questions would remain unanswered. All they knew was that Alessia had gone out for the morning and promised to come back. For the moment, there was no mystery, only expectation, only routine, only the quiet confidence that a daughter would soon walk back through the door and join her family for the journey ahead. But that return would never happen. And before the day was over, the ordinary life of Alessia Rosati would become one of Italy's most enduring unsolved disappearances. On the morning of July 23, 1994, nothing appeared unusual. The city of Rome was moving through another summer day. Residents were preparing for vacations. Students were enjoying the break between academic obligations. And families were making plans that revolved around warm weather and long afternoons. For the Rosati family, the day carried a sense of anticipation. A holiday trip to Umbria was waiting. The schedule was already in place. Alessia Rosati only needed to complete a brief outing before returning home. She had told her family exactly what she intended to do. She was going out with her friend Claudia. They would attend the high school graduation examination of a friend. Then she would come back. It was a simple plan, the kind of plan that rarely leaves a lasting impression because nothing about it suggests that history is about to intervene. At 21 years old, Alessia was old enough to move independently through the city without attracting concern. There was no reason for her parents to monitor her movements hour by hour. There was no reason to suspect danger. She was not embarking on a risky journey. She was not traveling to another country. She was not telling her family that she needed time away. She was simply leaving home for the morning. When people later attempted to reconstruct the events of that day, they found themselves returning again and again to this ordinary beginning. In many criminal investigations, there's a clear moment when circumstances change. A threat is received. A confrontation occurs. A suspicious individual appears. But in the disappearance of Alessia Rosati, the transition from normality to mystery is almost invisible. Somewhere between her departure and the time she was expected home, something happened. What that something was remains unknown. As the hours passed, Alessia failed to return. Initially, there may have been practical explanations. Delays occur. Plans change. Friends spend more time together than expected. In a large city, transportation issues and unexpected conversations can easily disrupt the schedule. A missed lunch does not immediately suggest a tragedy. Yet time continued to move forward. The family holiday could not begin without her. The certainty that had existed earlier in the day slowly gave way to concern. Every family that has experienced the disappearance of a loved one describes a similar emotional progression. At first there is patience, then mild irritation, then confusion, Eventually, anxiety begins to take hold. Why hasn't she arrived? Why hasn't she called? Where is she? For the Rosati family, these questions would become the beginning of a nightmare that would last decades. As concern grew, investigators would later attempt to establish a timeline of Alessia's movements. The task proved extraordinarily difficult because so much of the day remained undocumented. There were no smartphones in 1994, no GPS records, no social media activity, no digital trail capable of tracking a person's location from hour to hour. Instead, investigators had to rely on witness recollections. Those recollections eventually produced one of the most important facts in the entire case. Several witnesses reported seeing Alessia later that day in the area of Cancadoro. Located within northern Rome, Cancadoro became critically important because these reports represented the last widely accepted sightings of Alessia Rosati. In missing person investigations, the final confirmed sighting often serves as a dividing line between what is known and what is unknown. Everything before that moment belongs to documented reality. Everything afterward enters the realm of uncertainty. For Alessia, Cancadoro became that dividing line. Witnesses believe they had seen her there during the afternoon of July 23rd. The reports suggested she was alive. They suggested she was moving through the city. They suggested that whatever had happened to prevent her return home had not yet completely removed her from public view. Yet the sightings also created new questions. What was she doing there? Had she gone willingly? Was she meeting someone? Had her plans changed unexpectedly? Or had events already begun to unfold beyond her control? The available evidence offers no definitive answer. Investigators could establish that Alessia appeared to have been present in the area. What they could not establish was why she was there or what happened next. And that uncertainty would become the defining characteristic of the entire case. As evening approached on July 23rd, the known timeline effectively ended. No confirmed sightings followed. No verified communications emerged. No reliable evidence revealed where Alessia went after the last witnesses reported seeing her. The trail simply stopped. For investigators, such moments are profoundly frustrating. Human beings do not literally vanish. They travel somewhere. They encounter someone. They make decisions. They leave traces. Yet in certain cases, those traces become so fragmented that reconstructing events becomes nearly impossible. The disappearance of Alessia Rosati would prove to be one of those cases. Days passed. The family searched for answers. Authorities attempted to determine whether there were indications of an accident, a voluntary departure, or something more sinister. Then, 3 days after Alessia vanished, a development occurred that dramatically altered the direction of the investigation. A letter arrived, not to Alessia's family, not directly to investigators. Instead, the recipient was her friend Claudia. At first glance, the letter appeared capable of resolving the mystery. If Alessia had written it, then she was alive at least for some period after her disappearance. If Alessia had written it, then perhaps her absence was intentional. If Alessia had written it, then the explanation might be far simpler than investigators feared. The contents of the letter were striking. According to the message, Alessia claimed that she had unexpectedly encountered a man from her past, a man who had once been extremely important to her. The identity of this man was not revealed. No name was provided. No detailed description was offered. The letter merely suggested that he occupied a meaningful place in Alessia's history. According to the account she provided, this man was preparing to leave. Faced with the possibility of losing him again, Alessia supposedly made a sudden decision. She decided to leave with him. Not for a brief trip, not for a weekend, but for an open-ended journey across Europe. The letter described a desire to escape. Alessia reportedly wrote that she wanted distance from what had been a difficult year. She wanted freedom from pressures that had weighed heavily upon her. She did not know when she would return. For anyone reading the letter, the implications were obvious. The document presented a straightforward explanation for her disappearance. She had not been abducted. She had not been harmed. She had not vanished against her will. She had chosen another path. At least that was the apparent message. Yet even in those first moments, the letter generated as many questions as answers. The timing alone was curious. 3 days had passed. During those 3 days, her family had been desperately searching for information. Why had she not contacted them directly? Why had she chosen to write to Claudia instead? Why had she not called home? Why had she not reassured her parents that she was safe? Such questions became impossible to ignore. There was also the mysterious man. If he had truly been so important, why did nobody seem to know who he was? Why had he never become part of discussions among friends and family? How could someone significant enough to inspire a sudden departure across Europe remain so completely unidentified? The letter offered no answers. Instead, it introduced a shadowy figure whose existence could not be independently verified. Most importantly, the document stood in sharp contrast to Alessia's actions earlier that day. When she left home, she had not announced plans to travel across Europe. She had not told her family she needed time away. She had not explained that she was about to begin an entirely new chapter of her life. She had promised to return before lunch. The difference between those two scenarios was enormous. One involved a routine outing. The other involved abandoning one's previous plans in favor of an indefinite journey. How had such a dramatic transformation occurred within a matter of hours? Again, no one could say. The letter, therefore, occupied a strange position within the case. On one hand, it appeared to explain everything. On the other hand, it explained almost nothing. Its existence suggested voluntary action. Its contents generated uncertainty. Its message reassured some people while alarming others. For investigators, the letter represented a critical turning point. For Alessia's family, it represented something even more painful. Hope. Not certainty. Not relief. But hope. The possibility that Alessia was alive. The possibility that she had chosen to leave. The possibility that she might eventually return. Yet hope can be complicated when it arrives wrapped in unanswered questions. Because if the letter was truthful, then Alessia had willingly disappeared from the lives of those who loved her. And if the letter was not entirely truthful, then the mystery remained exactly where it had begun. Somewhere beyond the final sighting in Concadoro. Somewhere beyond the missing hours of July 23rd. Somewhere beyond the reach of investigators. The events of that day established the framework that still defines the case more than 30 years. Later, a young woman left home expecting to return before lunch. Witnesses later reported seeing her in Concadoro. She never came back. 3 days later, a letter appeared claiming she had chosen to leave with an important man from her past and travel across Europe. Those are the final pieces of the timeline that investigators can place with any degree of confidence. Everything that followed, the theories, the searches, the witness statements, the mysterious phone call, and decades of unanswered questions would grow from those few fragments. The ordinary morning was over. The disappearance had begun. And from that point forward, every attempt to understand what happened to Alessia Rosati would confront the same unsettling reality. The last known chapter of her life had ended. The next chapter was missing. By the time the letter surfaced 3 days after Alessia Rosati's disappearance, investigators found themselves confronting a problem that would shape the entire future of the case. On one side stood the possibility that Alessia had willingly left her previous life behind. On the other stood the possibility that the appearance of choice concealed something far more troubling. Determining which interpretation was correct became the central challenge of the investigation. And despite decades of effort, that challenge has never been fully resolved. The first major question concerned the authenticity of the letter itself. In many missing person cases, letters that suddenly appear after a disappearance are treated with immediate caution. Investigators know that documents can be forged. Family members can be deceived. Witnesses can be manipulated. If someone wished to create the impression that a missing person had voluntarily left, a letter would be one of the most effective ways to do so. For that reason, the document attributed to Alessia underwent examination by handwriting experts. Their conclusion was significant. The handwriting appeared to be genuine. According to the experts, the writing matched Alessia's known handwriting. There were no obvious indications that another person had attempted to imitate her style. The letter, therefore, could not simply be dismissed as a crude fabrication created by an unknown third party. At first glance, this finding seemed to move the investigation toward a straightforward explanation. If Alessia had written the letter herself, perhaps she truly had chosen to disappear. Perhaps she had encountered someone important from her past. Perhaps she had made an impulsive decision. Perhaps the case was not a crime at all. Yet the handwriting analysis solved only one question while creating several others. Authenticity of handwriting does not automatically establish authenticity of circumstances. Even if Alessia wrote the letter, investigators still needed to determine why she wrote it, where she wrote it, and under what conditions it had been composed. The contents immediately attracted attention. The letter described an encounter with a man who had once been important in Alessia's life. According to the account, this man was preparing to leave, and Alessia had decided to travel with him throughout Europe. The problem was simple. No one seemed to know who this man was. Friends could not identify him. Family members could not identify him. Investigators could not identify him. The entire explanation rested upon the existence of an unnamed individual who remained frustratingly undefined. Who was he? How long had Alessia known him? When had he become important? Why had his presence apparently remained hidden from those closest to her? The investigation struggled to answer these questions because the letter itself provided almost no useful details. A disappearance involving a known companion can often be investigated through interviews, travel records, financial transactions, and witness testimony. A disappearance involving an unidentified person is far more difficult. The mysterious man became one of the earliest and most enduring shadows hanging over the case. There was another issue as well. The practical realities of Alessia's alleged departure did not seem entirely consistent with the scenario described in the letter. According to the document, she intended to travel across Europe. Such a journey would ordinarily require preparation, money, personal belongings, clothing, documents, basic necessities. Yet available information suggested that Alessia had not left home carrying substantial belongings, consistent with an extended trip. This discrepancy did not prove wrongdoing. People occasionally make spontaneous decisions. Young adults sometimes act impulsively. Nevertheless, investigators could not ignore the contradiction. The image presented by the letter and the circumstances of Alessia's departure did not fit together perfectly. As these questions accumulated, Alessia's family found themselves in an emotionally difficult position. The handwriting experts believed the letter was genuine. That fact mattered. It suggested that Alessia had been alive long enough to write the document. Yet the family was not fully convinced by its message. Their doubts did not stem from the handwriting itself. Instead, they focused on aspects of the content. Certain details struck them as unusual. certain elements felt inconsistent. Over time, family members came to wonder whether the letter might contain meanings that were not immediately obvious. Could some of the statements have concealed another reality? Could the letter have been intended to communicate something indirectly? Could it have served as a signal that circumstances were not what they appeared to be? These questions never received definitive answers. What makes the situation particularly difficult is that both interpretations remain possible. A genuine letter can contain a genuine explanation. A genuine letter can also contain omissions, half-truths, or coded attempts to communicate distress. The investigation could not conclusively establish which possibility was correct. As a result, the letter remained trapped between two competing narratives. To some, it represented evidence of voluntary disappearance. To others, it represented evidence that something was wrong. While investigators continued examining the implications of the letter, another development introduced a new and highly intriguing lead. At some point during the investigation, a family acquaintance reported seeing Alessia in a white Peugeot 205. This was not merely another rumor. The witness believed they had personally recognized her. The vehicle reportedly carried distinctive rally markings on its side, making it easier to remember than an ordinary automobile. The account contained a detail that immediately attracted attention. According to the witness, Alessia appeared to notice that she had been recognized. Rather than acknowledge the observer, however, she allegedly attempted to hide her face. This single action transformed the significance of the sighting. Had the witness merely reported seeing Alessia inside the vehicle, investigators might have interpreted the observation in various ways. But the alleged effort to conceal her identity suggested intent. The question was intent toward what? If Alessia had voluntarily disappeared, hiding her face could indicate a desire to avoid contact. If she was attempting to create a new life elsewhere, recognition would represent a threat to that goal. Yet alternative interpretations also existed. Fear can cause people to hide. Stress can cause people to hide. Confusion can cause people to hide. Without understanding the broader circumstances, investigators could not confidently determine why such behavior might have occurred. Nevertheless, the sighting appeared important enough to warrant serious attention. Authorities attempted to trace the vehicle. This effort eventually produced an unexpected discovery. The Peugeot was reportedly linked to prison police personnel. At first, this revelation seemed potentially significant. Connections to law enforcement-related institutions naturally attract scrutiny during investigations. Investigators needed to determine whether the connection was meaningful or merely coincidental. Unfortunately, the lead ultimately failed to generate a breakthrough. Despite efforts to follow the vehicle's history and identify relevant individuals, no conclusive evidence emerged linking the Peugeot to Alessia's disappearance. No suspect was identified. No definitive explanation was established. The vehicle entered the growing list of unresolved elements surrounding the case. The letter remained unexplained. The mysterious man remained unidentified. The white Peugeot remained inconclusive. Months passed. Then, nearly a year after Alessia vanished, the investigation encountered another startling development. On July 6, 1995, the Rosati family received a message on their answering machine. The timing alone was enough to draw attention. Almost 1 year had passed since Alessia disappeared. The family had spent months living with uncertainty. Then suddenly a voice entered their lives. The caller was reportedly a woman. Her accent appeared foreign. Some accounts suggested it may have originated from the former Yugoslavia. The message itself was brief. Its brevity made it even more unsettling. The woman reportedly stated, "Alessia is very unwell. Find her." Then the message ended. No name followed. No address followed. No explanation followed. No indication was given regarding how the caller knew Alessia. No indication was given regarding where Alessia might be located. No indication was given regarding what very unwell actually meant. The message immediately generated a storm of questions. Who was the woman? How had she obtained the family's number? Why had she waited so long to make contact? Did she possess genuine information? Had she personally encountered Alessia? Or was the message simply a cruel hoax directed at a vulnerable family? Investigators faced enormous difficulties in evaluating the call. Telephone technology in the mid-1990s did not provide the same investigative opportunities available today. Modern investigators often rely upon extensive telecommunications records, digital tracking, and sophisticated forensic tools. In 1995, options were considerably more limited. The anonymous nature of the message created a nearly impossible situation. The statement sounded urgent. The statement sounded emotional. Yet urgency and emotion do not automatically establish credibility. A genuine witness might sound frightened. A prank caller might sound frightened as well. Without corroborating evidence, the investigation could not conclusively determine which explanation was correct. For Alessia's family, however, the message carried enormous emotional weight. If genuine, it suggested that Alessia had survived for at least a year after her disappearance. If genuine, someone knew where she was. If genuine, she might still need help. Hope and fear became inseparable. The possibility that Alessia remained alive was encouraging. The suggestion that she was suffering was devastating. Like so many aspects of the case, the call offered no closure. It expanded the mystery rather than resolving it. As years passed, the Rosati family continued pushing for attention to the case. Unlike investigations that gradually fade from public awareness, Alessia's disappearance retained a persistent presence. The absence of definitive answers encouraged periodic re-examinations. Journalists revisited the story. Independent researchers reviewed evidence. New ideas emerged. One of the most notable developments occurred when independent investigators examined aerial photographs of an area near Alessia's neighborhood. The location was Parco del Valle. The photographs reportedly appeared to show signs of previous excavation activity. Disturbed ground can attract attention in missing person investigations because clandestine burials often leave visible changes in soil patterns. Investigators therefore considered the possibility that the site might contain evidence relevant to the case. Expectations naturally grew. After years without significant breakthroughs, any potential physical evidence carried enormous significance. Search efforts were conducted. Investigators examined the area. Eventually, remains were discovered. For a moment, it seemed possible that one of the greatest mysteries in modern Italian criminal history might finally be approaching resolution. Bones have been found. The next step belonged to forensic analysis. Investigators needed to determine whether the remains were human and, if so, whether they could be connected to Alessia Rosati. The results were disappointing. The bones were not human. They belonged to animals. The apparent breakthrough vanished almost as quickly as it had appeared. Another promising lead had ended in disappointment. Another possibility had closed. Another chapter of the investigation concluded without answers. By this point, a pattern had emerged. The case repeatedly generated clues capable of inspiring hope. A letter, a sighting, a vehicle, a phone message, a search site. Each development seemed potentially transformative. Each appeared capable of revealing the truth. Yet every lead ultimately stopped short of resolution. No suspect emerged. No body was discovered. No conclusive evidence established whether Alessia was alive or dead. Investigators found themselves trapped in a landscape of possibilities rather than certainties. And perhaps that is what makes the investigation into Alessia Rosati's disappearance so uniquely frustrating. Many cold cases suffer from a lack of evidence. This case possessed evidence. The problem was that the evidence pointed in multiple directions simultaneously. The letters suggested voluntary departure. The family's doubts suggested hidden meaning. The Peugeot suggested movement after the disappearance. The anonymous call suggested survival. The failed excavation suggested how desperately investigators were still searching for physical proof. Individually, each clue appeared important. Together, they formed a puzzle that refused to come together. And as the years continued to pass, investigators, journalists, and family members found themselves returning to the same place where the mystery had begun. A young woman left home on July 23, 1994. She promised to return before lunch. She never did. Everything that followed produced questions. None produced answers. In many true crime stories, the investigation eventually moves toward a courtroom. Detectives identify a suspect. Prosecutors build a case. Evidence is presented before a judge or jury. Witnesses testify. A verdict is reached. Even when questions remain, there is usually a formal conclusion that allows the legal system to declare, at least officially, what happened. The disappearance of Alessia Rosati followed a very different path. There was no arrest. There was no indictment. There was no criminal trial. There was no defendant sitting in a courtroom facing accusations related to her disappearance. More than 3 decades after she vanished, the legal status of the case remains defined not by certainty, but by absence. No suspect has ever been officially identified as responsible for harming Alessia. No individual has been prosecuted in connection with her disappearance. No court has weighed competing interpretations of the evidence and issued a judgment. From a legal perspective, the central mystery remains unresolved. This absence of judicial resolution has had profound consequences for everyone connected to the case. In a typical criminal proceeding, evidence is tested through adversarial examination. Witnesses are questioned, claims are challenged, timelines are reconstructed under legal scrutiny. The courtroom becomes a place where competing narratives collide. In Alessia's case, that process never occurred. Instead, the evidence has remained largely within the realm of investigation, public discussion, and speculation. As a result, the story of what happened to Alessia Rosati has never been reduced to a single official explanation. Instead, several competing theories have survived over the decades. Each attempts to explain the known facts. Each accounts for some aspects of the case. And each struggles to explain others. The first and perhaps most widely discussed theory is that Alessia voluntarily disappeared. At first glance, this explanation appears to have significant support. Most importantly, there is the letter. The letter remains one of the strongest pieces of evidence suggesting intentional departure. According to its contents, Alessia encountered a man who had once been important in her life. She allegedly chose to leave with him and travel throughout Europe. The document described a desire to escape a difficult period and suggested uncertainty about when she might return. If the letter accurately reflected Alessia's intentions, then her disappearance may have been a personal decision rather than a criminal event. Supporters of this theory often point to additional information that emerged after her disappearance. Some acquaintances reportedly described Alessia as dissatisfied with aspects of her life. There were suggestions that she was unhappy and struggling with personal issues. Reports also mentioned tensions within the family environment. Such circumstances, while not uncommon, could theoretically contribute to a desire for dramatic change. The image that emerges from this interpretation is of a young woman standing at a crossroads. A university student. A thoughtful and introspective person. Someone carrying emotional burdens that may not have been fully visible to others. Someone who saw an opportunity to leave and decided to take it. The handwriting analysis is frequently cited in support of this view as well. Experts reportedly found no obvious indication that the letter had been written under coercion. The writing appeared authentic. Nothing in the analysis definitively suggested force or manipulation. Taken together, these elements create a coherent narrative. Alessia met someone from her past. She made a spontaneous decision. She departed voluntarily. She disappeared because she wanted to disappear. Yet despite its apparent simplicity, this theory encounters significant difficulties. The most obvious problem is time. Not weeks, not months, not a few years. More than 3 decades. If Alessia truly left voluntarily, she has maintained complete separation from her family for over 30 years. That fact alone does not make voluntary disappearance impossible. History contains examples of individuals who successfully severed ties with their previous lives. Nevertheless, such cases are uncommon, particularly when family members continue actively searching. No confirmed communication has emerged. No verified appearance has been documented. No definitive proof has surfaced demonstrating that Alessia established a new life elsewhere. The theory explains her departure. It struggles to explain her complete and enduring silence. This difficulty has led many observers to consider a second possibility. According to the second theory, Alessia may indeed have left voluntarily at first. However, something happened afterward. In this scenario, the letter is genuine. The decision to leave is genuine. The departure itself is genuine. The tragedy occurs later. Supporters of this theory argue that it resolves several contradictions present in the case. Perhaps Alessia truly encountered someone important from her past. Perhaps she genuinely chose to leave Rome. Perhaps she intended to travel. But during the days, weeks, or months that followed, she became the victim of crime. Such a scenario would explain why no contact followed. It would explain the absence of a documented future life. It would explain why decades have passed without reliable evidence confirming her survival. The theory also accommodates the possibility that the mysterious phone message from 1995 reflected real information. If Alessia remained alive for some period after leaving, the anonymous caller's statement that she was very unwell becomes easier to imagine within the broader narrative. Of course, this theory faces challenges of its own. Most significantly, it lacks direct evidence. No crime scene has been identified. No remains have been discovered. No suspect has been linked to such an event. The theory provides a possible explanation, but it remains precisely that, a possibility rather than a demonstrated fact. Without physical evidence, investigators cannot move beyond speculation. The third major theory is perhaps the most controversial. Over the years, some private investigators and witnesses suggested the possibility of a connection between Alessia's disappearance and other famous missing person cases that captured public attention in Italy. Most notably, comparisons were drawn to the disappearances of Emanuela Orlandi and Mirella Gregori. These cases occupy a unique place within Italian criminal history. Both generated intense public interest and inspired years of discussion, investigation, and speculation. Given the similarities inherent in any unresolved disappearance involving a young woman, it is perhaps unsurprising that some observers wondered whether broader connections might exist. Could multiple disappearances somehow be related? Could there be common factors hidden beneath the surface? Could investigators be examining isolated cases that were actually linked? Such questions naturally attract attention because they promise a larger explanation. However, the crucial distinction between speculation and evidence must be maintained. Despite suggestions from some observers, no verified evidence has emerged linking Alessia Rosati's disappearance to either of these other cases. No documented connection has been established. No shared perpetrator has been identified. No investigative finding has demonstrated that the cases are related. As a result, while the theory remains part of public discussion, it has not achieved evidentiary support. In many ways, the persistence of these competing explanations reveals the central challenge facing the case. Each theory successfully explains certain facts. None successfully explains all of them. The voluntary disappearance theory explains the letter. It struggles with decades of silence. The later victimization theory explains the silence. It struggles with the absence of physical evidence. The broader connection theory provides a larger framework. It struggles with the absence of demonstrated links. This is why the case remains unresolved. The evidence refuses to align neatly with a single narrative. Perhaps the most useful way to evaluate the mystery is to separate established facts from assumptions. The established facts are relatively limited. Alessia Rosati left home on July 23, 1994. She told her family she would return before lunch. Witnesses later reported seeing her in the Concadoro area. 3 days later, a letter appeared claiming she had left with an important man from her past and intended to travel across Europe. Handwriting experts reportedly concluded that the writing was genuine. A witness later claimed to have seen her in a white Peugeot 205. An anonymous woman left a phone message in 1995 stating that Alessia was very unwell and urging the family to find her. Searches conducted over the years failed to produce conclusive evidence. No body has ever been recovered. No suspect has ever been identified. Those facts form the foundation of the case. Everything else exists within varying degrees of interpretation. This distinction is important because unresolved cases often accumulate assumptions over time. Rumors begin to resemble facts. Speculation becomes intertwined with evidence. Narratives harden despite lacking confirmation. The disappearance of Alessia Rosati resists that process because the core uncertainties remain impossible to ignore. Investigators still do not know who the man in the letter was. They do not know whether the explanation provided in the letter was completely truthful. They do not know why Alessia allegedly attempted to hide her face in the reported Peugeot sighting. They do not know who made the phone call in 1995. They do not know where Alessia went after she was last reliably seen. And they do not know whether she was alive or dead in the months and years that followed. The absence of answers has left the legal system in an unusual position. There is no verdict because there is no defendant. There is no prosecution because there is no suspect. There is no official resolution because there is no evidence capable of producing one. What remains instead is a cold case. A file containing witness statements, investigative leads, unanswered questions, and decades of uncertainty. For some observers, the letter remains the key. For others, the phone call remains the key. For others still, the truth may lie in some detail that investigators have not yet recognized. Whatever the answer may be, one fact remains unchanged. The legal story of Alessia Rosati's disappearance has never reached an ending. The investigation produced theories. The theories produced debate. But none produced proof. And because proof never arrived, the central question that emerged in July 1994 remains exactly where it was when the search first began. Not solved. Not disproven. Simply waiting. Waiting for the piece of evidence that might finally reveal whether Alessia Rosati chose to disappear, became the victim of an unknown crime, or experienced a fate that investigators have yet to imagine. Until that evidence emerges, the case remains suspended between possibilities, one of Rome's most enduring unresolved mysteries, still standing outside the reach of both investigators and the courts. When people think about unsolved disappearances, they often focus on the moment a person vanishes. The final sighting, the last phone call, the unexplained decision, the missing hours that investigators struggle to reconstruct. Yet for the families left behind, the most difficult part is often not the day of the disappearance itself. It is everything that comes afterward. The days become months. The months become years. The years become decades. And still there are no answers. For the Rosati family, the disappearance of Alessia did not end on July 23, 1994. In many ways, that was only the beginning. While investigators attempted to interpret evidence and pursue leads, her family entered a different kind of reality, one defined by uncertainty. Unlike families who receive confirmation that a loved one has died, relatives of missing persons are often trapped between two emotional worlds. They are unable to move fully toward acceptance because hope remains alive. At the same time, they are unable to experience genuine hope because fear remains equally present. This condition has sometimes been described as living without resolution. Every unknown phone number creates a moment of anticipation. Every reported sighting creates a possibility. Every new lead raises expectations. And every dead end reopens the wound. The Rosati family experienced this cycle repeatedly. The letter created hope. Perhaps Alessia was alive. Perhaps she had chosen to leave. Perhaps she would eventually come home. Then doubts emerged. Why had she not contacted her parents directly? Why had she vanished so completely? Why did parts of the story seem inconsistent? Hope gave way to uncertainty. Then came the reported sighting involving the white Peugeot. Again, a possibility appeared. If the witness was correct, Alessia had survived beyond the day she disappeared. Perhaps investigators were getting closer. Perhaps answers were finally emerging. Yet the lead ultimately failed to produce a breakthrough. Once more, uncertainty remained. Then the anonymous telephone message arrived in 1995. Perhaps no element of the case better illustrates the emotional burden carried by Alessia's family. The words were brief. Alessia is very unwell. Find her. Few statements could have generated a stronger reaction. If the message was genuine, then Alessia might have been alive. If the message was genuine, she might have needed help. If the message was genuine, someone knew something. But the caller vanished back into anonymity. No explanation followed. No clarification arrived. The family was left with the message itself and the impossible task of deciding what it meant. Over the years, this pattern repeated again and again. A clue appeared. Expectations rose. The clue dissolved. Questions remained. Such experiences help explain why cold cases exert such a powerful influence over the people closest to them. The passage of time does not necessarily weaken the mystery. In some respects, it deepens it. As years pass, memories fade. Witnesses become harder to locate. Opportunities for clarification disappear. The unanswered questions become more permanent. Yet the Rosati family continued searching. The fact that the case was revisited multiple times reflects their determination not to allow Alessia's disappearance to be forgotten. Many investigations lose momentum as decades pass. Public attention shifts elsewhere. Resources are directed toward newer cases. Eventually, unresolved disappearances risk becoming little more than entries in archival records. That did not happen here. The family's persistence helped keep the case alive. Their efforts contributed to renewed examinations of evidence. Their determination encouraged investigators and independent researchers to continue looking for answers. One example was the later search conducted at Parco del Valle. The discovery of apparent excavation activity in aerial photographs offered another opportunity for resolution. When bones were eventually recovered, there was a moment when it seemed possible that the mystery might finally end. After so many years, even painful certainty can appear preferable to endless uncertainty. Yet forensic analysis determined that the remains belonged to animals rather than humans. Another lead disappeared. Another possibility closed. Another chapter ended without explanation. And so the years continued to pass. By the 2000s, Alessia had been missing for more than a decade. By the 2010s, more than 2 decades. By the 2020s, more than 30 years. An entire generation had grown up without knowing where she was. For many younger Italians, Alessia Rosati was no longer simply a missing university student from 1994. She had become part of a larger history of unresolved disappearances, cases that remain present in public memory precisely because they resist explanation. This transformation is one of the defining characteristics of cold case. At first, the missing person is known primarily by family, friends, and local investigators. As time passes, the case acquires symbolic significance. People begin discussing not only the individual disappearance, but also the broader questions it represents. How could someone vanish so completely? How can decades pass without definitive evidence? How can a person leave behind so many clues and yet so few answers? The case of Alessia Rosati embodies these questions in an especially powerful way because nearly every major piece of evidence appears to point in a different direction. The letter suggests one possibility. The witness sighting suggests another. The telephone message suggests another. None fully agrees with the others. None eliminates the others. As a result, the mystery remains remarkably intact despite the passage of time. Some observers continue to believe that Alessia voluntarily chose a different life. Others believe she encountered danger after leaving Rome. Others remain convinced that an important clue has been overlooked or misunderstood. What unites all of these perspectives is the recognition that certainty remains out of reach. And perhaps that is why the story continues to resonate. Human beings are naturally drawn to narratives with conclusions. We want causes and effects. We want explanations. We want events to make sense. Unsolved disappearances deny us that satisfaction. They force us to confront the limits of what we know. They remind us that evidence can be incomplete. They remind us that memories can fade. They remind us that some questions persist long after the people asking them have grown older. In Alessia's case, those questions remain as compelling today as they were in 1994. Who was the mysterious man mentioned in the letter? Was he real? If so, why was he never identified? Why did Alessia reportedly leave without the preparations one might expect for long-term travel? Why did she never contact her family again? Was the sighting in the Peugeot accurate? If it was, why did she allegedly hide her face? Who left the message on the family's answering machine in 1995? What did that caller know? And perhaps most importantly of all, what happened after Alessia was last reliably seen in the Conca Doro area? More than 3 decades later, no definitive answer exists. As of 2026, Alessia Rosati remains officially listed as a missing person. There is no confirmed evidence proving that she is alive. There is no confirmed evidence proving that she is dead. There is no body. There is no identified suspect. There is no final chapter. Only possibilities. Only theories. Only a collection of clues that continue to resist interpretation. For investigators, the case remains open in the sense that its central mystery has never been resolved. For the public, it remains one of Rome's most enduring cold cases. But for the family, the meaning is far more personal. Behind every investigative file is a missing chair at the table, a missing voice in conversations, a future that never unfolded as expected. The disappearance of Alessia Rosati is not remembered because of sensational violence or dramatic courtroom revelations. It is remembered because it captures something uniquely haunting about unresolved loss. A person can disappear physically while remaining profoundly present in the lives of those left behind. In the end, the story returns to where it began. A 21-year-old literature student leaves home on a summer morning. She tells her family she will return before lunch. The family prepares for a holiday. The day appears ordinary. Then the ordinary becomes extraordinary. A final sighting. A mysterious letter. A white Peugeot. An anonymous phone call. Decades of searching. And still no answer. Somewhere beyond the known facts lies the truth about what happened to Alessia Rosati after July 23, 1994. Whether that truth involves a voluntary departure, an unforeseen tragedy, or something else entirely, it remains hidden. Until new evidence emerges, the case remains suspended in uncertainty. And so the search continues, not only for a missing person, but for an explanation. Because more than 30 years after Alessia Rosati disappeared from the streets of Rome, the most important question has never changed. What happened to her after she promised she would come home? No one has yet been able to answer. And that is why the mystery endures. I want you to imagine a woman whom everyone in her neighborhood trusted. A woman who greeted people politely. A woman known not for violence, not for scandal, not for criminal behavior, but for being a devoted mother. In the small Italian town of Correggio, she appeared to be exactly the sort of person neighbors would turn to for advice, for help, or simply for a friendly conversation. There was nothing about her outward appearance that suggested she would one day become one of the most infamous killers in Italian history. There is nothing that hinted at the horrors that would eventually be uncovered behind the walls of her home. Yet history remembers her by a name that still evokes shock decades later, Leonarda Cianciulli, the soapmaker of Correggio. Her story is not merely a story about murder. It is a story about obsession, fear, superstition, grief, and the terrifying consequences of beliefs left unchecked. It is a case that continues to fascinate criminologists because it challenges one of the most comforting assumptions people often make, that evil always looks frightening. Sometimes it does not. Sometimes it looks ordinary. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it offers help. And sometimes it waits patiently for trust. By the time authorities finally understood what had happened in Correggio, 3 women were dead. Their disappearances initially seemed unrelated. There were no dramatic public attacks. No witnesses running through the streets screaming for help. No obvious crime scenes that immediately attracted attention. Instead, there were simply women who vanished after telling friends and relatives that they were about to begin promising new chapters in their lives. One was seeking marriage. Another hoped for employment. Another believed she had found a fresh opportunity after years of hardship. Each of them had reason to feel hopeful about the future. Each of them believed that someone was helping them. Each of them trusted Leonarda Cianciulli. That trust would prove fatal. What investigators eventually learned was so disturbing that the case quickly became one of the most notorious criminal investigations in 20th century Italy. According to Leonarda's own confession, she had murdered 3 women between 1939 and 1940. After killing them, she dismembered their bodies. She dissolved human remains in caustic soda. She described collecting blood. She described turning that blood into ingredients used for baking cookies. She claimed that soap had been produced from the remains. The details were so grotesque that they sounded less like a criminal confession and more like something from a nightmare. Yet these were not stories invented by journalists decades later. These were details that emerged from the woman herself. Even experienced investigators reportedly found the account difficult to comprehend. Cases involving murder are tragically common throughout history. Cases involving calculated deception are not unusual either. But there was something uniquely unsettling about this one. It was not only the violence. It was the contrast, the gap between appearance and reality. The distance between the woman the community thought it knew and the woman revealed through the investigation. That contradiction sits at the center of this story. To understand why this case remains so infamous, we must first understand the image Leonarda projected to the world. By all outward appearances, she was a mother deeply devoted to her family. In fact, much of the story that follows revolves around one particular relationship, her relationship with her son, Giuseppe. According to Leonarda's later explanations, the crimes were connected to an overwhelming desire to protect him. She would eventually claim that she believed human sacrifice could keep her son safe from death. Whether one interprets that explanation as sincere belief, self-justification, or something else entirely, it became the central narrative surrounding her crimes. The image is deeply disturbing. A mother, traditionally associated with nurturing and protection, becoming the source of unimaginable harm to others because of an obsessive need to protect her own child. The contradiction is difficult to ignore. Yet this contradiction is precisely what makes the case so compelling and so unsettling. Throughout history, people have often attempted to explain horrific crimes by searching for simple answers. We want clear motives. We want villains who are obviously evil and victims who are obviously targeted. Reality is often less convenient. In the case of Leonarda Cianciulli, the lines are tangled within years of personal tragedy, superstition, emotional trauma, and irrational fear. Long before any murders occurred, her life was marked by hardship. Long before investigators would hear a confession, there were stories of loss and suffering. Long before she became known as the soapmaker of Correggio, she was simply a woman struggling through circumstances that left deep psychological scars. None of those experiences excuse what happened. None of them diminish the suffering of the victims. But they form part of the path that ultimately led to one of Italy's most infamous criminal cases. As we move through this story, it is important to remember the women whose lives were taken. True crime narratives often risk focusing so heavily on offenders that victims become secondary, characters in their own tragedies. Here, they should remain at the center. Faustina Setti, Francesca Soavi, Virginia Cacioppo. These were not names created for a police file. They were real people with hopes, fears, relationships, and plans for the future. Each of them believed they were standing on the threshold of a new opportunity. Each of them disappeared after placing trust in someone who appeared trustworthy. Their stories remind us that the consequences of deception are measured not only by criminal acts, but by stolen futures. Another reason this case continues to fascinate observers is the role played by belief. Leonarda lived in a world shaped by superstition. She reportedly placed great importance on fortune tellers and prophecies. Years before her arrest, she had heard predictions about her future, predictions involving prison and confinement in a criminal asylum. Such claims might seem absurd to many people. Yet belief does not require objective truth in order to exert influence. Human beings often act not according to reality itself, but according to what they believe reality to be. In Leonarda's case, those beliefs appear to have become deeply intertwined with her understanding of fate, danger, and protection. The result was a mindset that would eventually contribute to catastrophic decisions. There is another question that hovers over this story from beginning to end. How does a community react when someone they trusted is revealed to be capable of terrible violence? The shock of such discoveries extends far beyond the immediate crime. It forces people to reevaluate memories. Conversations that once seemed harmless suddenly appear sinister. Acts of kindness become suspect. Familiar faces become masks, hiding unknown realities. For the residents of Correggio, the revelations surrounding Leonarda Cianciulli transformed an ordinary neighbor into a symbol of horror. Yet that transformation occurred only after the truth emerged. Before then, she was simply part of the community. That fact remains one of the most chilling aspects of the case. As we continue, we will trace the story back to its beginnings. We will examine the circumstances that shaped Leonarda's life. We will explore the losses she endured, the beliefs she embraced, and the fears that consumed her. We will follow the paths of the women who entered her orbit believing they had found help. We will examine how a series of disappearances gradually attracted attention and how an investigation eventually exposed one of the strangest and most disturbing murder cases in Italian criminal history. Along the way, we will encounter difficult questions without easy answers. Was Leonarda driven primarily by superstition, by obsession, by fear, by a combination of all three? And how should we understand a person who claimed that murder was an act of protection? Those questions remain part of the enduring legacy of this case. But before investigators uncovered the truth, before confessions were given, before courtrooms filled with reporters and spectators, there was simply a woman living in Italy, carrying burdens that few people fully understood. To understand what happened next, we must first return to the beginning of Leonarda Cianciulli's life, to the years before she became infamous, and to the experiences that would help shape one of the darkest chapters in Italy's criminal history.